I never believed in first contact, not really. I worked the late shift at a repair dock on the far edge of Titan Station, fixing freighters and drones that limped in from the outer belt. My life was predictable: rust, metal, and recycled air. Until the night the stranger fell from the sky. The radar had glitched for days, the kind of static interference that engineers like me blamed on magnetic storms. But this time, the flash that lit up the hangar bay wasn't just a storm reflection. It was a capsule, a smoking, mangled pod that slammed into Bay 7 with enough force to rattle the bulkheads. Security didn't respond right away. They rarely did. The outer bays were low-priority zones. So I grabbed my suit, sealed my helmet, and jogged toward the breach, expecting a wrecked probe or smuggler's pod. What I found instead was an armored figure, half buried in molten alloy. The suit was unlike anything I'd seen. Sleek, silver-black plates pulsing faintly with light. When I knelt beside the body, the visor flickered, revealing a face that was human, or close enough. Eyes like liquid mercury blinked up at me, dazed and wide. "Don't move," I said, tugging at the debris. The armor was heavier than any material I'd handled before. "You're lucky you hit the docking zone." The stranger groaned, voice distorted through the suit. "Not luck. Coordinates chosen." The sentence barely made sense, but before I could ask more, the pod's emergency beacon began flashing red. I knew what that meant: radiation leak or reactor breach. I hooked my arms under theirs and hauled with everything I had. Somehow, impossibly, I managed to pull the armored figure free and drag them toward the maintenance corridor. Then the light changed. The entire bay went crimson. The station's defense alarm screamed, and through the viewport I saw them, ships. Dozens of them. Sharp, black shapes like dagger wings, emerging from the dark. They didn't look human. And they weren't stopping. We barely made it to the secondary hatch before the first impact hit. The floor shuddered. A moment later, I heard the sound of docking clamps being ripped apart. "Who are you?" I demanded, sealing the blast door behind us. "Why are they attacking us?" The stranger's helmet retracted with a soft hiss, revealing pale skin streaked with veins of silver light. They looked too perfect, almost sculpted, but exhaustion lined their features. "I am Kareth of the Sovereign Line," they said softly. "They are the Dravith Legion. They hunt the blood of their god." I stared at them, uncomprehending. "The blood of their what? You're saying you're some kind of descendant," they said, cutting me off. "Of their maker. Of what they once worshipped. But now they serve only conquest." Before I could reply, the corridor shook again. The bulkhead at the far end twisted open, and the soldiers poured in. They were enormous, clad in bone-like armor that shimmered with a sickly blue sheen. Each carried a blade that buzzed like a live wire. There were at least 20 of them. Kareth stepped in front of me, raising a hand. The lines of light in their skin blazed brighter, and then, to my disbelief, every alien in the hall froze mid-stride. One by one, they dropped to their knees, weapons clattering. "What did you just do?" I whispered. "The blood calls to them," Kareth said quietly. "Even corrupted faith remembers its god." The aliens trembled, some crying out in a strange, guttural language. One even began to chant. But the moment passed, the trance broke, and they lunged forward again, howling. "Run!" Kareth shouted. We sprinted down the corridor, the clang of pursuit echoing behind us. I guided us toward the central shaft, slamming controls to seal bulkheads as we went. Kareth moved slower now, limping from the crash, their armor sparking. I realized that without help, they'd never make it. I grabbed a plasma cutter from a wall rack and turned. "Go," I'll hold them off. Karatha's expression softened. You are brave for a human. I tried to laugh. You don't know me very well. Then the Dravith burst through the last door. I swung the cutter, slicing through the first attacker's blade arm. Sparks and black ichor sprayed across the deck. Another lunged, but before it reached me, Karath raised both hands and unleashed a pulse of light so bright it burned through my visor's tint. When I blinked the afterimage away, the corridor was empty. Only drifting dust motes and melted armor fragments remained. Karath collapsed. We made it to the med bay, where I patched the armor with whatever I had. Sealant nanofiber patches, improvised power leads. While I worked, Karath told me the rest. Long ago, their species had been the architects of a galactic empire. The Sovereigns. They'd created the Dravith as soldiers, gifting them life and purpose. But when the Sovereigns vanished, the Dravith turned feral, worshipping the last of their creators as gods and hunting them across the stars. Karath was one of the last. Titan Station had been their refuge. I never meant to bring them here, Karath said, voice weak. But my beacon drew them. They will not stop. Then we'll make them stop, I said, checking the reactor feed. There's a defense grid on the station. I can reroute power to the rail batteries. They have dreadships, Karath warned. Your weapons cannot. Maybe not, I said, grinning grimly. But we can still make them bleed. We fought for hours. The Dravith boarded in waves, breaching hull after hull. But with Karatha's energy pulses and my control of the power relays, we held them back. Every time Karath raised their hand, dozens of enemies faltered, torn between devotion and fear. It gave us just enough time to counterattack. But the station was dying. Systems overloaded, oxygen failed, gravity flickered. I knew we wouldn't last. Finally, in the command core, surrounded by the chaos of alarms and sparks, Karath turned to me. You must leave. Not without you. My energy. It is unstable. If I channel it fully, I can destroy their fleet. But this station. I understood before they finished. You'll die. Karath smiled faintly. All gods must one last time. I hesitated only a second before clasping their hand. Then I'm staying. They met my gaze, and in that moment something passed between us. Not words, just understanding. Then together, they said. The blast that followed lit the rings of Saturn like a sunrise. Titan Station was gone, but so were the Dravith ships, vaporized in a single wave of light that rippled through the void. Weeks later, scavengers found me adrift in an escape pod, unconscious but alive. No trace of Karath remained, only fragments of silver armor, fused into my suit's fabric like veins of light. Sometimes when I close my eyes, I still hear the echo of their voice. The blood remembers. And when I look up at the stars, I swear, for a moment, every alien fleet out there hesitates.